Have you ever wondered if the experiences of your grandparents could affect your own health and behavior? It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, but it's a real phenomenon studied in the field of epigenetics. Today we'll delve into the fascinating world of epigenetics and explore how trauma experienced by one generation can be passed down to the next. We'll uncover the science behind this process and understand its profound implications on our lives. What is epigenetics? Imagine your DNA as the instruction manual for building and operating your body. Epigenetics is like the system of bookmarks, highlights, and notes that tell your body which parts of the manual to read and when. While our DNA sequence remains largely unchanged, epigenetic changes can switch genes on or off, influencing how cells read genes without altering the underlying genetic code. The basics of epigenetic mechanisms. Epigenetics works through mechanisms like DNA methylation, histone modification, and non-coding RNA molecules. DNA methylation involves adding a chemical group to DNA, which can silence a gene. Histone modification involves proteins called histones around which DNA winds. By adding or removing chemical groups from histones, the accessibility of genes to the cellular machinery that reads them can be altered. Non-coding RNA molecules can interfere with gene expression, further adding layers of control. Epigenetics and trauma. So how does trauma fit into this picture? When a person experiences trauma, it can lead to long-lasting changes in their body and brain. These changes can be so profound that they alter epigenetic marks, effectively rewriting parts of the instruction manual. This means the way certain genes are expressed can be altered by traumatic experiences. Intergenerational transmission of trauma. Here's where it gets even more fascinating and a bit eerie. Research has shown that these epigenetic changes can be passed down to subsequent generations. This means that the trauma experienced by a parent or grandparent can influence the health and behavior of their children and grandchildren. For example, studies on Holocaust survivors and their descendants have shown that children and even grandchildren of survivors exhibit changes in stress hormone levels and increased susceptibility to stress-related disorders. Similar findings have been reported in the descendants of people who survived other traumatic events such as famines or severe abuse. Case studies and evidence. Let's look at a few key studies to understand this a bit better. Dr. Joy DeGroy's research on post-traumatic slave syndrome. Dr. Joy DeGroy has conducted extensive research on post-traumatic slave syndrome, examining how the trauma experienced by enslaved Africans in America has been passed down through generations. Her work highlights the ongoing effects of historical trauma on African American communities today, including issues related to mental health, family dynamics, and social behavior. Holocaust survivors. Research conducted by Rachel Yehuda and her team studied the descendants of Holocaust survivors. They found that the offspring had altered levels of cortisol and stress hormone, suggesting a potential mechanism for how trauma can be transmitted epigenetically. Dutch hunger winter. During World War II, a severe famine known as the Dutch hunger winter occurred. Studies on individuals conceived during this famine show that they had higher incidence of metabolic cardiovascular diseases. Furthermore, their offspring also exhibited health issues, indicating the transmission of these epigenetic changes. Animal studies. Animal studies provide further insights. For instance, experiments on mice have shown that exposing them to stressors can lead to behavioral and psychological changes that persist for several generations. These studies help us understand the potential mechanisms in humans. How does it work? The exact mechanisms of how trauma-induced epigenetic changes are transmitted across generations are still being studied. However, there are a few leading hypotheses. Germline transmission. Germline transmission is a primary hypothesis for how trauma-induced epigenetic changes are passed to future generations. This process involves the direct transmission of epigenetic marks from parents to their offspring through sperm or egg cells. When an individual experiences trauma, it can lead to biochemical changes in these reproductive cells, altering the expression of certain genes without changing the DNA sequence itself. These altered epigenetic marks can then be inherited by the next generation, affecting their development and health. For instance, a parent's stress response genes may be epigenetically modified by trauma, leading to heightened stress sensitivity in their children. This mechanism suggests that the effects of traumatic experiences can persist long after the initial event, influencing descendants who have never encountered the original trauma firsthand, thus perpetuating cycles of stress and disease across generations. Prenatal environment. The environment in the womb can influence the developing fetus. If a mother experiences significant stress or trauma during pregnancy, it can affect the fetus's development and potentially alter epigenetic marks. Parental behavior. Parenting styles and behaviors influenced by a parent's own trauma can create an environment that affects the child's epigenetics. For instance, a parent who experienced trauma may exhibit heightened stress responses, which can influence the child's stress-regulating systems. Implications for future research. The concept of intergenerational transmission of trauma has profound implications for how we understand health and disease. It suggests that to fully understand a person's health, we need to consider not only their own experiences, but also the experiences of their ancestors. This field is still relatively young and much more research is needed. Scientists are working to identify specific epigenetic marks associated with trauma and understand how they are transmitted. There is also growing interest in exploring whether these epigenetic changes can be reversed. Could interventions such as therapy, medication, or lifestyle changes help break the cycle of trauma transmission? Addressing epigenetic trauma. Understanding that trauma can be passed down epigenetically underscores the importance of addressing trauma at both individual and societal levels. Mental health support, trauma-informed care, and creating supportive environments can help mitigate the effects of trauma. Therapeutic interventions. Therapeutic interventions play a crucial role in addressing trauma and its epigenetic effects. Relational and somatic depth therapies, as well as techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, help individuals process and heal from traumatic experiences. These therapies can potentially alter harmful epigenetic marks, promoting healthier gene expression. By working through trauma with a trained therapist, individuals can break the cycle of trauma transmission, leading to improved mental health and physical health for themselves and future generations. Community support. Community support is vital in mitigating the impacts of trauma. Creating safe, supportive environments where individuals feel understood and cared for can reduce the long-term effects of traumatic experiences. Community programs that offer peer support, education, and resources can help individuals cope with and overcome trauma. Strong social networks provide emotional and practical assistance, fostering resilience and healing. By building trauma-informed communities, we can enhance overall well-being and reduce the transmission of trauma across generations. Policy changes. Policy changes are also essential for addressing the widespread effects of trauma. Implementing policies that increase access to mental health care, reduce poverty, and prevent violence can significantly mitigate the impacts of trauma on individuals and communities. Government and institutional support for trauma-informed practices in schools, workplaces, and healthcare settings can create environments that promote healing and resilience. By prioritizing mental health and trauma prevention in policymaking, we can create a healthier, more equitable society for current and future generations. In conclusion, epigenetics and the intergenerational transmission of trauma reveal the complex ways in which our experiences can shape not only our own lives, but also the lives of future generations. This emerging field highlights the importance of addressing trauma at all levels of society to create healthier and more resilient individuals and communities. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe for more content exploring the wonders of science and human health. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.